At Government Executive Media Group, our promise is simple: to build the best go to market strategies and bring the most influential leaders in government to you, our clients. Last month, we announced the acquisition of the Atlas for Cities, a cutting edge online community and market intelligence platform for state and local government leaders. This month, we were excited to share our acquisition of City and State New York, the premier media organization for state and local leaders in New York. With these acquisitions, our state and local government portfolio now boasts more than 550,000 unique monthly engagers, with only a 1% duplication rate between Route 50, City and State New York, and the Atlas. With these three properties now in the fold, we believe we can help brands enhance their impact in the market with data that informs, media that connects, and marketing services that activate. So today we're going to talk about the state and local landscape in 2021 and the strategies that you should consider both nationally and on a hyper-local level. With that, I want to introduce Tom Allen, who's the president and CEO of City and State New York, and Hillary Surface, my longtime friend and coworker, who's also the vice president and publisher of Route 50. So Tom, we're excited to welcome City and State New York to the GEMG family, and I just kind of gave the Cliff Notes version. So why don't you just go a bit deeper? What is City and State New York? How did it come to be? And what value does it bring to the state and local ecosystem right now?
Great. Well, thanks for inviting us, and thanks for being so gracious in welcoming our company. So City and State is a media company that I created in 2006. It's actually modeled on a business that I helped start in Washington, D.C. in the mid-90s called a publication called The Hill. And when I saw that publication do really well in Washington, D.C., I thought, why not start a New York City version of it? So we launched in 2006 actually with a monthly newspaper called City Hall, which covered city government. After Andrew Cuomo, who was then running for Attorney General, was in my office and noticed that we were doing a newspaper covering city government, he said, "It's great that you're covering city government, but all the money's up in Albany." So we started a publication then called The Capital in 2008. In 2011, we merged into one publication called City and State. We then launched a daily email called First Read, which has become our flagship. And then we started doing events. So right now, we kind of dominate the political coverage and political ecosystem in New York. Our morning email is really a must read, and it kind of convenes all the powerful people around New York State and sets the agenda for the day. We also do three other daily emails, one First Read Tonight, another one in the middle of the day called Coronavirus Update, and one that's geared to the nonprofit community. We also publish a weekly magazine, which really focuses on policy and some of the policymakers and profiles. And then we do about 50 events a year, many of them networking events for the powerful that coincide with our power lists, which have become kind of a staple of our business. So I think we've become sort of the go-to place where people and advocacy groups and unions go if they want to get their message in front of the governor or the mayor or the legislature. And we've also been sort of the convener of thought leader summits, thought leader dinners, and also networking events where the powerful and people that want to be around the powerful are able to convene.
Well, so let's talk a little bit more about emerging leaders, which I think, so emerging leaders and influencers in the city and state. You have a tremendous track record of engaging some of the most influential leaders and policymakers in New York. So who's making a name for themselves presently? Kind of talk a little bit about how you organize your list and kind of what you're seeing.
Sure. So, New York obviously has now the second most powerful person in the country as one of our senators, Chuck Schumer. He was on our cover of our magazine about 2 weeks ago. I think the headline was "Step Up, Chuck." And we also cover Andrew Cuomo, who's become a national figure for a variety of reasons, but particularly because of his response to the pandemic. Tish James, who's our Attorney General, who has been on our cover a number of times, including when she was a 40 under 40, is now the Attorney General and leading the prosecution of the former president. So we've got some really, dynamic leaders in New York State, but we also recognize, new talent. Melissa DeRosa, who's the number 2 person to the governor, was one of our 40 under 40 years ago. Hakeem Jeffries, who is the heir apparent possibly to Nancy Pelosi, was also 40 under 40 about 10 years ago. So we've been really good at spotting talent when they're kind of in the beginning of their careers And it's been fun to watch those people sort of rise and become the power brokers of the state.
But you're definitely organizing by, demographics and sectors.
Mm-hmm.
Just talk a little bit about how you organize all of your lists, which are great. And I think you're doing 38 this year, right? 38
actually 48. We're doing one a week, 40. So 48. We've carved up the state in 3 different ways, or 4 different ways actually. We do power lists by geography, so the 100 most powerful people in Manhattan, the 100 most powerful people in Long Island, and various other parts of the state. Then we also do it by industry, the 100 most powerful people in healthcare, or the 100 most powerful people in real estate. And then we also do it by demography, so the 100 most powerful Black leaders in New York State, or the 100 most powerful LGBTQ leaders. And then we do it also by age, and we do a number of 40 under 40s by industry. We're doing a labor 40 under 40 next week. And we also do an event that is kind of a fun event we started a couple of years ago called 50 over 50, which arose because people over 50 were saying, hey, it's not fair. You're not recognizing people like us, people who've been in government for 20, 30 years who've achieved lifetime achievement awards. So that's been a fun event that we do in January of a year as well.
Absolutely. Something I can relate to. So Hillary, the Route 50 story is a little different. So tell us a little bit about Route 50 and what you're doing there.
Sure. It is a little bit different. While we do talk to a lot of the influencers and the leaders in state and local government that Tom mentioned, we really focus on the practitioners. So the people running the day-to-day business of government. So in addition to agency leadership like governors and mayors, we reach the city planners, the finance directors, a lot of the technology folks, so the CISOs and the CIOs, procurement officials, program managers, really anyone running government and the business of government. And our goal, as long as I can remember, even when we started Government Executive 50-something years ago, our goal is to reach, and I always say, everyone seated around the conference room table. And I guess now it's a virtual conference room table, but everyone sitting around the conference room table when there's any big procurement or any big program being discussed or fulfilled. That's who we reach. And we try to write and cover what goes into those decisions. So again, the business of government. And I think what's different is we also reach that audience on a very national level, right? So where city and states very concentrated in New York, we do that across the country. So all 50 states, the big cities, the big counties. So it's a very nationwide reach.
And I think that's something that you and I have heard just when you have somebody planning their marketing budget. Oftentimes they may have some hot spots that are important to them, some cities or some states that are important, but they also have BD people spread regionally and throughout the country. And they really do need to kind of spread their marketing dollars and their business development dollars nationwide. So sometimes we do find that. I think you would agree with that.
Absolutely. I think that budgets are finite, right? They don't have unlimited budgets, so they have to really focus where the opportunities are in specific states and specific cities.
And so what are the top 5 trends that you're seeing across the country right now in terms of that nationwide reach?
Yeah. So I think, when we look at really 2020 and what's emerged from that and a continuation of that into 2021, as you said, I think there's 5 key trends. And first and foremost, and probably the most immersive and the one that influences really everything government's doing right now is COVID and everything that the pandemic has done to impact our communities. So think about things like digital citizen services, vaccines, COVID tracking, and then all the finance woes that city and state governments are dealing with right now as a result of the pandemic. And then the next 2 trends, so that's really the first and kind of biggest trend. The next 2 trends also align with the pandemic or a result of that, and that's remote work and modernization. So when you think about remote work, thinking about cybersecurity and all the new access points that bad actors can hack into. And then you also think about workforce training and morale, teaching people how to work differently. And then modernization. I mean, we hear this all the time, but I think what the pandemic really did is it forced cities and states to modernize in minutes, to modernize very quickly so that they could deliver their services to citizens in a remote way. And then the other two, I would say, are emerging technology. And we're really seeing that pick up in the civic tech space. So you think AI, robotics, data-driven applications. We're seeing a lot of that. And then finally, and really most importantly, for our readers, and I think, Tom, you would say this as well, are the social issues. So yes, they're running a business, but they're also really dealing with the social issues in their communities. So policing and public safety, homelessness, and in trying to bridge that digital divide, those social issues aren't going anywhere, right? So our readers, our practitioners are dealing with that on a day-to-day basis and constantly trying to solve that for their communities. I know New York is doing a huge push to address the homelessness issue right now. And I think we're seeing a lot of folks really focus on that.
And Tom, I mean, does that resonate with what you're seeing in New York?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like the rest of the country, New York is focused on getting the COVID vaccine distributed. That's kind of number one priority. And, we're tracking that every day in our newsletters of how many people have gotten COVID in the last day, how many people unfortunately have died, and how many people have gotten the first injection and second injection. So I think that's story number one that we see. And then number two, right behind that, is the economic recovery. Our restaurants are opening again, 25% capacity starting, I think, today. Our venues for sports events and some concerts are going to open on February 23rd to 10% capacity. So I think everyone's really focused on how do we make a comeback. A lot of people have left New York. There's been countless stories about that.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of a mayoral election right now, which is going to determine who the next leader of our city is in June. Everyone's really focused now on how does New York make a comeback. I think everybody thinks New York will come back. It's not a question of if, but it's a question of when and how. Yeah. What will that new city look like? Will it be a more equitable city? Will it be a more racially inclusive city? Will it be a city where police reform is incorporated into that? And also, I think very, very much on people's minds is public safety. And, the balance now between police reform and keeping the streets safe is something that the next mayor is going to have a very tough time accomplishing, because crime has ticked up in our city the past year, and we hope it's an aberration. We hope it's an aberration, but unfortunately, it's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So you both work a lot with brands and companies trying to increase their impact to state and local government market. We talk about the need to both pair or couple the national visibility with local influence. And so, Hillary, I'm going to start with you on this. What is working for brands in terms of reaching and engaging state and local leaders across the nation?
Yeah. And I think, it's interesting. I have been in this role for 5 years now, previously working in federal marketing. And I think while the tactics have changed, right, particularly this year, we've moved to much more content, much more digital events. The most successful strategies I've seen in state and local government marketing really haven't changed. So when I started 5 years ago and until today, I would say it's really the same thing. It's creating a national strategy and creating a targeted or ABM strategy. And then figuring out and using data and insights to inform that strategy. So what I hear from clients, as I mentioned earlier, they have finite budgets, right? They can't be everywhere for every opportunity. So you use the national strategy really to build brand awareness. And you come to someone like a Route 50 to help you cover the country and cover all the opportunities there are. And then you use the ABM or the targeted strategy. And that's where I think city and state New York plays really well with Route 50. You use that targeted strategy to identify kind of your 5 must wins. I always tell my marketing clients, like, figure out the 3 to 5 must wins, because we don't have budgets or they don't have budgets to identify 20. So what are the 5? If New York's someone you need to win, then let's really target New York, whether it's through advertising, through city and state New York, through events. So it's, again, that national strategy and then that more targeted ABM strategy, and then the data and the insights, which, again, Atlas is a great complement to help us do that along with our own research, but the data and the insights to help inform that strategy. I think that's what's always worked. And I think it will continue to work as we move forward, which is why it's exciting to have someone like City and State with us now.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the nice things about an ABM or account-based marketing strategy is that, and I've always liked this, is that you can have a limited amount of budget dollars, but a good strategy like that makes your campaign looks like it's 5 times, 10 times larger, because the people that you need to be reaching, they're seeing your message again and again as though you had an infinite budget. And so it's a great way, when you are on a budget, who isn't, to kind of reach those people. So Tom, I'm going to pivot to you.
And I think just real quick, I think we've also invested in technology and inside our company to help companies target specific areas or specific personas. So in addition to someone like City and State, we, as a national brand, can also target those specific targeted areas for certain companies.
And definitely, in addition to New York, I mean, we're always hearing about, I do need to reach California, I do need to reach Texas. There are some places that we do hear from clients again and again. And as we are building our larger network, we're definitely able to be serving those requests as well, because we know, where some of our biggest requests are from clients. And so definitely, I think that's a great point, Hillary. So Tom, I am going to pivot into how you develop local influence. So what are you seeing brands do differently and effectively to build influence locally in New York? And are those principles that you think actually would work in some of those other states I mentioned, like New York and California?
Sure. So, I think we're seeing sort of 3 different components in New York. Advocacy, which is a big part of our advertising base, they're becoming much more sophisticated, whether it's through use of video or takeovers of our website or other ideas to really stand out and to get in front of the governor, the mayor, their staffs, is one thing. The other is that, a lot of our clients, and we have, more local clients, although we do have some tech clients that are national as well, they're really trying to brand some of the individuals that work at their firms or that, the parts of their company as opposed to the leader of the company. So we're seeing a lot more of that, especially and on our power lists, and since they're so broad, some of our clients, will have somebody who's a healthcare expert in their consultancy. And if that person gets on one of our power lists, they'll use that to brand them as well. And then we're seeing a lot more CSR too. We're seeing a lot of our clients trying to make sure that people know that they're good corporate citizens, that they're doing great stuff in the community. We have an event that's one of our signature events every year at the end of the year called the CSR 100. And we profile and select 100 people that have done great corporate social responsibility over the past year. And that's become a bigger and bigger part of what we do.
And we've talked a little bit about these separately, but definitely the best examples is when you can actually marry these 2 strategies together. And so, Hillary, I'm going to actually ask you, do you have an example of how you can kind of, roll this all up together into one kind of cohesive strategy?
Yeah, and I think I'll just make this really quick because it is actually pretty easy, right? I think right now, if you look at a big national event, so in our world, it's our State of the State event or our Future Cities event, where we're pulling in a big audience for an extended period of time, maybe 3 days, maybe it's a week. So looking at involvement in a big event, like one of those 2 events, and then follow it with more of a micro-targeted event, like a workshop, like a roundtable, to target the areas. Maybe it's a region, maybe it's a group of people, maybe it's just one state. So creating a micro-targeted event following a big national event, and then from that, creating content from that micro-targeted, from the learnings that you get from that targeted event, and then distributing that back out to a national audience. So if you're talking, let's say, to firefighters, then you distribute the content back to all firefighters as lessons learned so they can hear what their peers are thinking. So I think it's pretty easy, Connie, to think about a national presence, targeted presence, and then wrapping it with content.
That's really great. I just want to close our conversation, which has been fabulous today, with an eye on what's next for both of you. So, Tom, I'm going to start with you. What is on the horizon for you in both the near term and also you've got some product development priorities. You can kind of give us a little bit of a sneak peek, both short term and long term, of what to expect.
Sure. So, we're excited. We're developing a new product that we hope to roll out this spring, probably closer to May, which will be a daily email covering the New York delegation in Congress. We'll call it DC First Read. There are so many important New Yorkers in DC now, not just in Congress, but also in the new administration. And again, because Chuck Schumer is going to be sitting at the helm in the Senate and deciding so many budget issues, we believe that a product that him and his staff and the whole congressional delegation reads will be something very appealing to advertisers and sponsors who want to get in front of them. So that's one thing that we're working on the short term. We're about to roll out a new state in about a week or two. We made a commitment when we joined GEMG that we were going to try this in other states. I didn't think it would happen so quickly, but we're going to make an announcement next week about a new state. And we're looking at some of the states you've mentioned earlier, Texas, California, Florida. We think we're very bullish on the business model and the editorial model that we have. We think it's very replicable, and we're kind of excited to take it on the road.
Great. And thank you so much, Tom. And on Route 50, Hillary, tell us what's new in Route 50 this year, both in organic and other growth and coverage and insights. And what are you seeing?
Yeah, sure. I think what we're talking about today is, one step in our acquisitions, and that's super exciting. And in business, there's always two ways to grow, through acquisitions and through organic growth in your core. So City and State is one of our acquisitions. Atlas at the end of last year was a second acquisition. And those are just increasing our footprints and our offerings in state and local government. So that's really exciting. And I think we'll see more of that in the years to come as we grow, what Tom was talking about, into different cities and states through City and State New York. But secondly is just organic growth in our core. So in the coming months, I think you'll hear announcements about, growth in our newsroom. So we can continue to cover technology. Technology, as we all know, is an important element for government leaders to reach their citizens and to do what they do every day. So we're going to continue to cover technology and hopefully increase our technology coverage in the coming months. So those are the two exciting things, our organic growth and our growth through these acquisitions. I would say we're not finished yet, so just stay tuned.
And one thing I just love about Route 50 is as we have grown organically, to the database that we have now, it continues to have the highest engagement rate of any of our newsletters at Government Executive. And that hasn't changed. So the more people we keep adding, it still continues to be such an engaging audience, which I think is so powerful. And that's just something it's really excited me since we launched this brand in 2015. So I want to thank Tom and I want to thank Hillary for joining me today. Obviously, a lot of really, really interesting stuff coming down the pike. It's new, exciting things, all designed to help our clients reach the engaged state and local market this year. So thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thanks, you, Connie.